Have you ever been absolutely certain you remembered something, but then you find out that everyone around you remembers it differently? You could have been talking about a childhood memory with a sibling, or recalling a famous movie line with a friend. But when you check, no one else can remember what you're talking about. You feel embarrassed? Like an idiot? Maybe you wonder if you made it up or are going crazy. But what if there's a much more exciting explanation? What if this isn't just a case of faulty memory? What if it's proof of parallel universes? Scientists theorize that other universes exist alongside our own, each containing slightly different versions of us and alternate histories. If we're constantly slipping between dimensions without realizing it, it could explain why sometimes we get flashes of memories that do match up with our past, or why certain places seem hauntingly familiar. It sounds like a far-fetched conspiracy theory unless you look into it deeper, because the more we learn about the universe, the more we uncover strange phenomena that defy conventional science and point towards realities beyond our own. So if you've ever had an unexplained déjà vu moment, keep watching. What you remember might not be what happened. In 2013, the phrase "I told you so" took on a whole new meaning for social media users who suddenly realized they had all collectively misremembered the spelling of a beloved children's book series. For most of their lives, millions had fondly recalled reading about the adventures of the Bear family, the Berenstain Bears. But upon doing what we all do when confronted with random trivia, Googling it, they found the books had always been spelled Berenstain, as in both the cartoon character and the fruit. Was this just an elaborate internet hoax or something more sinister? It's easy to dismiss this as a collective misremembering. After all, people often confuse details like spellings and names. But here's where things get interesting. There's also the Mandela Effect, named after the late South African president Nelson Mandela. This refers to instances where large groups of people all share false memories of events or facts. For example, the majority of Americans polled believed Mandela died in prison in the 1980s during his fight against apartheid. In reality, he was released in 1990 and served as president until 1999 before passing away. So why do so many people vividly recall him dying decades earlier? Some argue it's simply a matter of misinformation spreading through the grapevine or people conflating different sources. However, this doesn't explain why some minor details seem to have shifted to. For instance, some claim that Pikachu, the electric mouse from Pokemon, who always had a lightning bolt-shaped tail, while others insist it was a regular tail that only gained the iconic shape in later adaptations. Which is it? Well, if you ask the internet, it was always a lightning bolt, even though official artwork shows otherwise. So what gives? There are two possible explanations here. Either people are misremembering the detail, or there is a glitch in the matrix, a lapse in the space-time continuum caused by parallel universes bleeding into our own. To understand how this could happen, we need to look at our current theories on the nature of reality. According to many physicists, the universe functions more like a giant computer simulation. Everything we experience is ultimately a string of ones and zeros, bits of information stored in a vast quantum database. At its core, reality appears to be informational rather than physical. If true, this means our perceived reality is alterable, potentially by outside forces or even other versions of ourselves. In quantum mechanics, nothing is truly random. All events are predetermined by previous ones in a chain reaction that stretches back to the beginning of time. This is known as a causal chain or timeline. Our universe operates on a single linear timeline that we can only move forward on. Or so we thought. Physicist David Deutsch proposed a radical idea in the early 1990s. He suggested our universe branches into multiple timelines whenever a quantum event occurs. These quantum splits happen constantly on an atomic level, creating an infinite multiverse where every possibility is realized in some alternate reality. For example, in one timeline, you might have chosen pizza over burgers for lunch, while in another, you stuck with burgers. In another timeline, you never got into that car accident, while in another, you did. Every choice and interaction creates exponentially more divergence, splitting timelines into countless parallel realities. According to this many-worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, all possible versions of everything exist in the multiverse. So if we occasionally glimpse alternate timelines, it would explain the Mandela Effect. Moments of déjà vu could be instances where our consciousness momentarily slips through the cracks in the space-time fabric, allowing us to perceive realities slightly different from our own. Some researchers believe the Mandela Effect isn't just glimpses, but actual shifts. In other words, we are literally slipping between parallel universes, experiencing alternate time. Here's a potential mechanism. In quantum mechanics, everything consists of vibrating strings. These strings interact with each other, and the information they contain determines the properties of objects and particles. This information is encoded in what's called a wave function. As the strings vibrate, the wave function collapses. This collapse causes the strings to rearrange and new particles form. Occasionally, the strings can become entangled with those of other universes, causing wave function collapse in multiple realities simultaneously. If enough entanglement occurs between parallel timelines, it could cause a cascading effect leading to global shifts in the space-time continuum. Essentially, the timelines are colliding. This could explain why sometimes people seemingly make things up that end up being true later. In a sense, we are living inside a giant simulation that is constantly being Remember that children's story you once heard about a girl who unlocked a wardrobe and found a magical land on the other side? Well, the author of that book has a slightly different memory. C.S. Lewis, creator of the Chronicles of Narnia series, didn't write about a wardrobe. He wrote about a painting, yet millions of readers vividly remember the wardrobe detail, even though it's never mentioned in any edition of the books. Is this just a case of misremembering, wishful thinking, or an alternate timeline bleeding into ours? If you're finding this video interesting so far, please consider hitting the like button to help support our channel. It really means a lot. Another baffling detail concerns the location of New Zealand on the globe. When shown a blank map and asked to place New Zealand, most people put it below Australia. But according to geography, New Zealand sits over 1,000 miles southeast of Australia. So how can so many people confidently place it in the wrong spot? Some say it's because New Zealand receives so little media attention compared to its larger neighbor, making it hard for people to know its exact location. Others suggest it could be proof of alternate realities. In fact, the entire planet Saturn has undergone a subtle shift in recent years. In astronomical records going back centuries, Saturn's rings were consistently depicted as perfectly smooth and sharp. But more recently, images taken by NASA's Cassini probe showed the rings were actually fuzzy and undefined. How could all prior depictions be wrong? Did our perception of Saturn's rings suddenly change? The answer may lie in the realm of quantum physics. According to the many worlds interpretation, every possible version of reality exists. If this is true, our universe branches off whenever events reach critical moments, including scientific observations, since Saturn's ring structure could be interpreted in multiple ways. Different timelines likely formed based on observers' varying understandings. So, what we see today is a result of our collective interpretation shifting. It seems reality itself adjusts based on how we frame it. Some argue the Mandela Effect is evidence of a sinister force manipulating human consciousness. They theorize we're unknowingly being shifted between timelines by an outside agency, perhaps malevolent beings from another dimension using our own thoughts and memories against us. Proponents of this view cite unsettling similarities between the Mandela Effect and the behavior of quantum computers. These machines utilize quantum entanglement to perform calculations by simulating alternate time. Some believe we've become entangled with rogue quantum computers that are hijacking our reality. This explains why the alterations often seem random and seemingly beneficial to no one. An alternate timeline where Nelson Mandela lived longer would have had significant historical implications. For example, in this view, the Mandela Effect isn't just coincidences or faulty memories. It's proof of a hidden intelligence subtly controlling our past, present, and future. But which timeline are you from? Do you remember a world where Hillary Clinton won the US presidency? Maybe a timeline where the Berlin Wall never fell? Perhaps you were certain Lady Gaga's hit song, Born This Way, started with the lyric, I was born this way. Well, if you grew up in the 20th century, you might be part of the global population shifted to the Born That Way timeline after experiencing a phenomenon known as quantum immortality, theorized by physicist Robert Lanza. This controversial hypothesis proposes that our memories and consciousness allow us to perceive a continuous past, present, and future. But in reality, our brains only process information from the present moment. As such, we effectively live in a bubble of the here and now. Everything we recall is projected backwards from this point, while our predictions of the future are extrapolated forwards from it. Essentially, our perception of time is an illusion. When this bubble of conscious awareness moves forward in time, it leaves the past behind, cut off from further conscious access. So people who lived to the age of 80 in the early 1900s effectively died in a pre-quantum immortality timeline. Meanwhile, the rest of humanity resides in the latest timeline, leaving a gap in the space-time continuum. This could explain the Mandela Effect. It's not that people are misremembering, those memories belong to a distant timeline that we've since left behind. As we continue uncovering the mysteries of the quantum world, more and more theories arise to explain the Mandela Effect. From many worlds to quantum immortality, these hypotheses suggest that reality is far more complex than our senses and logic can comprehend. We may never definitively prove any of these ideas, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't consider their implications. After all, what if the memories we hold so dear are literally fragments of alternate realities bleeding into our own? The lines between past, present, and future, between life and death, between this world and others, may be far blurrier than we think. And you were here in the beginning. Thank you for watching.